Before we start the show, I'd like to talk to you about Brandwatch, which is a digital consumer intelligence company. It helps businesses better understand their consumers and buyers with clever software that enables them to analyze conversations from across the web and social media. To find out more, visit brandwatch.com, and you can sign up for up-to-the-minute consumer insights in your inbox each week at brandwatch.com/bulletin. And it's worth mentioning that my business, Automated Creative, uses Brandwatch every single day, and our business would be impossible to deliver without it. So it's of real pride that I welcome them as partners for this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a weekly podcast about the future of marketing. I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing some of our industry's leaders about their vision for what is coming next. And this week is no different. I'm on a call with Jennifer Mohammed, who is Director Go-to-Market Strategy at The North Face. Jen, for anyone listening to this podcast who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you just give them a quick overview of your career and what you do on a day-to-day?
All right, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me. My name's Jen. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a sushi-loving dog mum living in Switzerland. Sorry, that's my Tinder profile. But no, I mean, for me, in terms of what I do for my job, I've recently taken over the position of go-to-market director, which I'm sure not many people understand what that means, but it's a super cool role, working with brand leadership teams across all kind of functions and all the commercial channels. So what I'm really focused on is supporting and tracking and optimizing all of our end-to-end seasonal business processes, and kind of really following from, seasonal concept kickoff through to all of our kind of go-to-market touch points, either that be with Salesforce, marketing, and the consumer. Through to when the campaign and the product actually launches through in the market. So I've been in this position now for a couple of months. And before this, I was actually a director of direct-to-consumer, working in planning, buying and allocation for all of the owned and operated stores for retail and TNF.com. But yeah, my career-wise, I've been working with direct-to-consumer for about 16 years. I think I'm aging myself now, but had the fortunate pleasure of working across loads of different brands like Puma, Guess, and the Arcadia group based in the UK. So I've had some global, regional and market leadership positions across these different brands, and also had the pleasure of working in different countries as well. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
So across these many roles and across this love affair with D2C over all those years, which is great to hear, what new belief or behavior has made the biggest impact on your work life?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a good question. I would say for me, what's the new belief and behavior that I'm really focused on is you've really got to work on setting your boundaries and really looking at prioritization. And I know everyone kind of says that, but I think what kind of happened is, when I was in my late 20s, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And just a side note, ladies, please make sure you get regular checks. But it really gives you a perspective. And, I don't want to get too morbid about it, but we don't have an infinite amount of time. And so my view is, at the end of my life, what would you give for like an extra hour to spend with loved ones or doing something that brings you joy? So I'm really focused on not wasting my time. So for me, when I look at work and when I look at the companies I work for and the structure and the meeting cadence, it's really about, okay, listen, could this meeting have been an email? How do I claw back that hour? Can we please focus and not waste time and spending hours unproductively? So improving efficiencies, really looking into what's really going to move the needle and what can kind of wait or what doesn't need to happen, I think is super important. So, within that, it's also, work-life balance as well. So for me, first point is, really focusing on what matters. Am I getting a return on investment for my time? And then how do I bring that into my work life to make sure that everything I do is with the lens of efficiency? And also not taking it too seriously, right? Because, working for these brands, I sell jackets, I sell shoes, I sell clothes. Like if something doesn't get done, what's the worst that's going to happen? I think people can take themselves really too seriously. And I think you just take a step back and realize kind of what's important and don't sweat the small stuff. So that's kind of really how I organize my time and kind of live my life.
So that all makes sense. And not sweating the small stuff and marking your boundaries and having clear priorities always makes so sense, and it's so much sense, and it's always so rejuvenating to hear that. But how do you deal with the reality of things being uncertain when you need to learn new things? So yeah, you can prioritize everything down to the absolute essentials, but there's always going to be room for growth, either like mentally or from experience level, learning new things that it's very hard to quantify how long they're going to take. So one of the things I struggle with is when I take on a new thing, I'm like, oh, I'll just learn ... in a couple of hours. When actually that could be like a day, a month, a year, or, a decade's worth of learning. So my own struggle with essentialism is that if you only do the very most important things that you can sometimes ignore and miss out on very important things that you don't know. So how do you make sure that you have your mindset, but yet you're not denying yourself important opportunities that are harder to quantify before you start climbing that mountain?
Oh, Tom, that's a really good question and a really good point. I think for me, what I was kind of trying to infer is, with your day-to-day life, freeing up that time then enables that time for education and learning and development, right? So it's like if I'm making sure that I've managed efficiently, my workload, my schedule, my day-to-day core business tasks, right? It frees me up so many more hours to do what needs to be done. And I think it also comes down to like setting boundaries. So for me, I'm really clear on my weekends on my own. Obviously urgent things will come in, but hey, I want that time. I want that time back. So, I want to learn Italian. I want to learn how to ski. I like to do exercise. So carving out those little pockets to learn, develop and grow on a personal level, not only on a professional one. It's like if you can make, and it's super difficult, right? Because we're in this kind of culture where being busy has kind of been, almost like a birthright. Everybody thinks it's really, really credible to be constantly flustered, constantly busy, running in and out of meetings. And actually taking that time and giving yourself the space to digest the meeting that you've just been in, giving the time to collaborate and work with other people and learn how their functions are working or what skills that they have, and taking the time to also read, learn, research, listen to podcasts. It's like everything is around time, and how efficiently I can save it can then be utilized, how it can be utilized in a different way. So I'm not sure if I directly answered your question, but that's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
And do you have a bit of software that you rely on to help you with this ruthless commitment to efficiency?
This is going to sound super basic. It's not really a software, but it's my Outlook. So my Microsoft Outlook on the email, I literally carve out hours there. So every single task, and this makes me sound super anal retentive.
Oh,
so
come on, go for it.
But it's like I block out the time. So I have, I'm super routine orientated, right? So I'm up and out of the house 6 a.m. every day, walk the dog. That's in the calendar. It's like, it's timed, it's done. It's like, okay, we're going to, we have this beautiful lake walk. It's like, and I listen to my podcast in the morning when I'm walking the dog. So I'm listening to either your podcast, Tom, or, there's some really great financial ones I also listen to. So I'm trying to learn a bit more about money and economy. So for me, it's like, okay, I carve out an hour and a half every morning for exercise and education. So the time I get back for breakfast, it's like, 8 p.m., 7:30, and I'm sitting down at my desk, then that's blocked out as well. So for me, it's really blocking out my calendar to go, okay, this is the time I want to assess this, or this is my prep work for the meeting I need to attend, and this is then the meeting I need to attend. So I think it's really important to have it all scheduled in and even have your lunch hours scheduled in, right? Because you need to give yourself a break in the middle of the day. And so you need to not be accessible to everybody the whole time. And I think that's really something that the organizations and the companies that we're working for, especially with remote working, especially with a lot of virtual communication, it's you are accessible all the time, be that through your phone, your laptop, or even being in the office. It's like actually being able to set that time boundary and kind of say, hey, this is what I've slotted for this, and this is my calendar is up to date. And if you want to talk to me about something else, feel free to slot it in, or you can approach me, but I always make sure I've slotted it out so I know what I want to be doing and I know how I want to spend my time.
So across your career, what would you say is your best marketing tip that you heard recently, heard back in the day, that you share most often with people who ask?
This is going to sound so cliche. I think everybody probably thinks this, but it's about being consumer first. And what I mean by that is, I think it's really important for brands and organizations to speak to the consumers they actually have and not just the ones they want to attract. I think it's about the authentic positioning. And if you're not being authentic, and if you're not reaching out to them, it's just a waste of time, money, and effort for everyone involved. I think what I've noticed in certain corporations is like, have you reviewed your bestseller data? Go back, review, why have people engaged with you? What is the review of your product or service? Have you got repeat customers? Are people coming back to you? Are they loyal to you? And if not, why not? And really focus on that, because for me, I feel that consumer loyalty is the single biggest unlock. And for that, you need trust, right? I need to trust that what you're selling to me fulfills the need I have. That's a good return on investment for my money that I earned. And does it perform as you promised it would? Because I think for brands to show up consistently and have this returning base of consumers that trust them, it's the foundation for a stable, super stable and scalable business. So I think that's the thing for me. Is I think within that nuance of consumer first, it's look at your actual consumer, because when I look at some of the marketing campaigns out now, it's like, who are you trying to attract? And is that authentic to your brand?
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we're going to move on now to your shiny new object, which is remote working, which isn't that shiny and new anymore. But what does let's say the future of remote working, what do you love about it or hate about it? And what do you think it's going to be like for the near future?
I mean, I love it. I absolutely love remote working. And I think there's so much opportunity on this if it's done right. I think you need to have a balance, yeah. And I think it obviously depends on the role and the organization. But if it's done right, we not only have access to a hugely diverse workforce. If I consider, if you were 100% remote, for example, you could be working with people internationally that don't need to relocate, that don't need to leave their families, that wouldn't normally want to work for an organization like yours because of the family commitments they've got or the social economic situation that they're in. You all of a sudden get access to a huge diversity of people from different cultures, different genders, however you kind of want to put it, different communities. And therefore, by having a more globally focused organization, that really enables you to speak to a huge wide range of people. That is one plus point from a corporate perspective. I can get the best talent if we don't have to physically move everybody. And then the second point for me is, and it kind of links a bit with what I'm kind of saying with the behavior, in terms of freeing up time and me being quite militant about it, I think there's very much an argument for the benefits of remote working for not only the employee, me, but also my employer. I find that you can be way more productive. I'm a lot less stressed because I don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about childcare, dog sitters, if something's going on. It's like I have all the facilities here that enable me to do my job. I don't need to commute in. I'm actually saving money as well. For me, it's like those lovely lunches that you'd have with everybody. It's like, well, maybe it's a bowl of cereal at my desk, or maybe it's something a bit more extravagant I've cooked at home. But it enables me to really balance out my home life and my work life, and get the most out of my own productivity. And I think as well, there's loads of super benefits, and we unquantified theoretically, but this has got to be doing good for the environment. Having a lot less commuters traveling around, a lot less cars on the road must be huge benefits from a pollution perspective, from an energy saving perspective. People are not spending money on petrol, travel. So I think in terms of the personal benefits of working from home, not only does it allow me to manage my home life a lot better, it also, for me, it's saving me a lot of money, and it's saving me a lot of time. So it's something that I'm super stoked about.
So I was totally in your camp for most of lockdown. I was like, I can do 10 meetings in a row. I can do 10 creds meetings in a row. And I sometimes got near that number and thought, well, I can only do like 2 or 3 of these in a day, like physically. And I thought, I just hope that when restrictions lift, that we stay with this, sales culture of just doing calls because it's convenient for everyone, right? But I've found that in the last month or so, when I've been out meeting clients again, the richness of those experiences and the depth of conversation has far surpassed any of the conversations that I've had over lockdown. So how do you, and that's my experience, obviously, but how do you think that remote working can work alongside those deeper, more unstructured conversations?
Interesting question. I think it's really about balance, right? Because right now I'm back in the office like 2-3 days a week. So I do completely agree. I think that personal interaction and that kind of sense of community and that relationship building, you can't really do that over Zoom. So I think there are definitely, different calls for in-person working, right? And I think we, as an organization, we try to make sure that we're carving out that time and those days. So we'll all come in for a strategy day and we'll spend the whole day together and we'll really work through some key business goals, right? Or, if you want to have a specific one-to-one, you want to talk to somebody about their development, I think it's really, really important to have that personal touch and that personal interaction. And you don't build relationships in the same way. But I think it's really the digital communication tools that have really come onto the market the past year, the Zooms, the Teams, even utilizing WhatsApp in some degree, like all of these digital titans, I suppose, have really made it very easy to connect with people, very easy to drop someone a note or a text or a message. And so I think you have been a lot more accessible. I know I've been a lot more accessible. People maybe wouldn't come up in the position that I'm in. They maybe wouldn't approach me in the office, but they're quite happy to send me a note because it's less scary for them. So that can also build community and connection. But I think from an organizational perspective, allowing work from home and enabling the office environment to have, Zoom specific meeting rooms so that people can hear, people can dial in if they are working from home that day. I think it's really about just allowing the workforce and allowing the teams to manage themselves. And I think it's about giving people, the authority and the autonomy to really see how they want their departments to be run. And I think that's been something that's, in my experience over the past couple of years, has been working really well in the organisation that I'm in.
Do you think there's an unspoken tension about the needs of us to do remote working and working more efficiently, and the promise to shareholders of the giants that you talk about, right? So Slack, for example, Slack's goal is to make more people use Slack more often, right? It's not to help Jen get her job done. It's not there to make sure that Tom finishes working time so he can cuddle his daughter, right? That's not their goal. Their goal is to get more subs, more people using the platform and selling. Same with Slack. Same with whether that's WhatsApp, as you say, that can be used well, whether it's Teams, Zoom, whatever it is. Like, their goal is to drive revenue for their business. The more sticky they are, the more money they make. But the more sticky they are, the worse they are for us. Or do you think I'm being alarmist?
A bit alarmist. I mean, I think there's always, at the end of the day, it's very corporate life. We all lead, and we're all in this kind of economic cog, right? So someone's making money somewhere. I think, these tools, these digital titans, they have enabled us to work. And I think it's super challenging, right? Because yes, they need us to keep using their tools, need us to not go back to in-person working, in-person learning so much in order for them to be profitable, right? So if that is pushing innovation, if that's pushing technology, then I think in essence, even though it might be for a greater evil, it's still a really good resource that we use. And, I don't mean to quote, I don't know if it's a Marvel movie, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? I think we need to be utilizing these things in the right way, and for the benefit of the organizations we're in. That being said, it's a good question, Tom. I'm stuck.
Well, I think we should leave it on the Spider-Man quote. I think it might be Spider-Man.
It's a Spider-Man.
With great marketing comes great responsibility. I don't know, but we could maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Anyway, Jen, if someone wants to get in touch with you about the topics that we've discussed today, how would you like them to do that?
Oh, you guys can hit me up on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best place. I'm not really social media savvy, so I don't have a Facebook. I do have an Instagram, but it's mostly for my food. So you're best off catching me on LinkedIn if you have a professional request.
And what makes a great LinkedIn message to you?
You know what? That's really challenging, and I don't think I'm necessarily good at it, because I've definitely reached out to people and just been so embarrassed by what I've even written. I think when it comes to me, it's probably easy to say what I don't like. I don't like a lot of fluff, and it's when people kind of try to blow smoke and be like, oh my God, I think you're amazing. I really want to talk to you about this. It's like, well, actually, no, tell me about you. It's like, if you're reaching out to me, tell me about you. Tell me about what you're doing. What do you want help with? I think I don't need to. I'm a kind of person where, obviously compliments are lovely, but I would prefer really to understand who you are as a person and how I can support you, how I can help you. I do a lot of mentoring, and I really encourage everybody to really think about, not trying to be selfish, but really think about themselves and really how they want to present themselves for additional opportunity or for questions or whatever. So I would say, lead with you, and then let's chat.
Jen, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's Tom at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.